When somebody asks, I kind of never know where to start. It's going to have to involve lots of hyphens.
I think it's what you call a chamber ensemble. I don't exactly know what a chamber ensemble is.
You don't talk about ensembles in rock music. It's a very classical word.
Classical indie art rock. It's probably the closest I've ever gotten.
It's suggesting that it's an ensemble, in the classical sense, but it's also not. It's non.
It's brilliant. It sort of fits the group perfectly.
So I'm really passionate about writing music which combines intuition and rationality. So music which has some emotion and heart, but also under the surface some sort of mathematical elegance.
You become really obsessed with it, and I guess for me, I was really interested in then in finding that music, then sort of pulling it apart and figuring out how it worked. And I wanted to play music, but even more than that, I wanted to sort of understand how it all worked and sort of have this music that was really emotional for me, and sort of strip it back and pull it apart and figure out why it did that and what it was.
I just love the noise it makes. It's so exciting. It stimulates both, emotionally and both intellectually.
As long as I can remember, I've loved music. It's been probably the integral part of my life.
Where you just listen with your heart and dance along to it. Yeah.
Not quite yet. They're going to demonstrate it. They're really keen.
In music, if you have things repeating, and if you have, say, two things that are repeating, and one thing is going faster than the other thing, then eventually, they'll sort of drift out, and you get this really interesting sort of texture that keeps changing and keeps evolving.
Because other patterns will emerge because of that, and eventually will line up again. And it sort of has blended into this style that Nonsemble now works in.
But yeah, I think it's like a compulsion. I just sort of enjoy it, and I feel very much like it's a natural state for me to be writing music.
He always thinks, as process-driven as his works are, it has to sound good and it has to sound engaging. It has to be interesting. So that's really great. I think he does a great job.
So I love the geometry in this music, and I love the way it sounds as well. But a few years ago, I had a bit of a crisis when I realized that actually the only person who gets to see these lovely geometric patterns in the music is me, the person who writes it. So I wanted to let the audience in on it. So I set about making videos which would represent these phasing patterns in the music somehow. And so I would get tiny chunks of video and loop it in the same way that I was doing the audio, so that every sound was represented by something on screen, and the audio and video mimic each other.
BMX Phase is a piece that Chris wrote, and then he put together this video with a guy doing a backflip on a BMX bike. The first time I watched it, I was like, whoa, what is this? The structure of the song is designed around repeating parts, and they come in and out of phase with each other.
Chris was telling me the whole idea of the song was to have the main melody just repeated in different parts, kind of coming in and out of each other, kind of like waves.
But I got to a point where really the next step was to try and make it happen with live musicians, so that I could finally marry that human heart and emotion with the mathematical elegance, the intuitive and the rational.
We got invited to perform at TED by the organiser who saw one of our videos on YouTube.
It was pretty bizarre, actually. She just sort of stumbled across it. I've never met her before, and yeah, she just called me up and said, "Hey, do you want to play at this thing?" And I was like, she was sort of saying, "Have you ever heard of TED?" And I was like, Are you joking? So it's pretty exciting for me.
So today we have Nonsemble, my very skilled and also very tolerant of the sort of crazy music that I make them play. And they're going to play a piece called BMX Phase. They did an amazing job. I was so proud of them doing the BMX Phase thing. It's nice that I don't have to play for that. I just get to watch them.
We just had a completely packed room, and everyone was just, I mean, it was kind of exactly what you wanted, in that they were really quiet and attentive for what we were playing, but not because they felt they ought to be quiet, but because they were really into it.
Yeah, a few people. Did you guys get any?
Yeah, we had
any walk-ups.
Had some awkward eye contact, and some guy was like, then came back. It's like,
oh, it's nice. It's nice when someone sort of like, yeah.
I got a few that stopped to look over my part to see what the song was as they went out.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be good for our resume or my LinkedIn profile. Performed at TED. Yeah.
So yeah, like it's nice when people come up afterwards and sort of say something nice. What's that? Validation.
Validation.
Yeah. It is real music after all.
Perfection is impossible, but that's an exciting thing, that you can always strive for that, and there's always more to explore.
And I think we're all really interested in where it can go, because it has a lot of potential, and the future of it is fairly blurry at the moment. We don't know where it'll go.
And I think even if we do, you know, end up in different places, you know, it'd be nice still to get back together and do work on projects when we can.
Probably a headline show at the Brisbane Entertainment Centre, or maybe even Madison Square Garden. Maybe next year.
Striving to find a place in the Australian music scene.
I guess for me, you know, I never expect people to really love this sort of music, because it is a bit weird, and I always find myself really surprised that people enjoy it.